What's up, everybody? Brandon Lindsay here with the Rehabber's Playbook, and today we're going to talk about building your scope of work as a rehabber or a developer. We had a TRP member recently come up to us with a scope of work that was 11 to 15 pages long. She was worried that this might be confusing and too much detail for contractors, and she was wanting advice. My first advice was yes, 11 to 15 pages is way too long for your scope of work. I appreciate anybody who likes detail because I like detail as well, but I'm going to challenge everyone to start focusing on the important detail and noticing all the detail that is unnecessary and maybe even can just be considered fluff, right? So I've challenged myself over the years to decrease as much fluff as possible in my scope of work so that I can communicate it with 1 to 2, maybe 3 pages at the most. And really, I try to stay with 1 to 2 pages for my scope of work. And as I've challenged myself over time, I've realized that we do not need a lot of the detail in our scope of work that people believe that we need. I want you to focus on just a handful of purposes of your scope of work. Your scope of work should be purposed mainly to communicate with contractors or communicate with lenders or partners. Secondly, to help you build your budget. And thirdly, to help you build your schedule. I think it's important to first note the distinction between a scope of work and a selection sheet and a material list. Okay, a selection sheet and a material list is purposed to help you with ordering material in the future, making that more streamlined, making that more efficient, and also maybe giving you a good idea of the fixtures and finishes on the project. Okay, sometimes it is important to add the material into your scope of work, but not all the time. Okay, sometimes it's important so plumbers can know where to rough in their vanities. Okay, so they might need to know what type of vanity that they need, but that should just be in the plumbing scope of work. But electricians don't necessarily need to know exactly what pendant light they need. They just need to know that they're installing a pendant light, right? So that's the idea of cutting out certain fluff and focusing on what the scope of work is meant for. And that's for communicating with contractors so you can get bids so they can understand the project. That's for budgeting and scheduling, like I said. So let's take a look at an example here. This is an example that I'm teaching within the Rehabber's Playbook. And what's great is even the Rehab Valuator software that we like to use spits out the scope of work exactly like this. Maybe not with the phases here, which is not necessarily necessary, but with the line item and the detail next to the line item, right? And this is the best way that you can build your scope of work. It's very simple. And the whole video today is going to be revolved around simplicity and clarity. So I'm going to say that over and over, and I want it to be repeated so you can understand that that is the main goal right now is simplicity and clarity. So if you look here, this is a full scope of work for a full gut renovation. You're talking about as extensive as you can get with a renovation, all the way down to the studs, all new rough-ins, insulation, drywall, fixtures, everything. Okay, that is this scope of work. And you can see that I have fit it all into one page, one spreadsheet, one page. Very simple. It will take me maybe a few minutes to read through this and have a really good idea of what I'm doing on the project. Okay, simplicity and clarity, right? I can read through it very quick and I have a good idea of what's going on. Okay, my lenders could read through it really quick and know what's going on. Same with my partners, and obviously, as we're about to talk about, your contractors as well. Now, when I get the 11 to 15 page scope of work, it's going to take me a good amount of time to flip through those pages and go back and forth to really understand what's going on. There's a lot of detail that's going to be overlooked and missed in the meantime, right? This is how we're going to stay simple and clear. So let's talk about communicating with contractors first. Okay, I used to be a contractor, so I think I have a really, really good outlook on this situation. If somebody handed me 11 to 15 pages of a scope of work, I'd be completely overwhelmed. I would certainly miss important detail that's kind of hidden between all of the cloudiness of a scope of work that big. And honestly, in my opinion, I might even step away from the project. I'd be like, this is too much. Let's keep it let's keep it simple and clear. Right. So communicating with contractors is very important here. They can do the same thing we just talked about, you reading through the scope of work very quickly and knowing what they're doing on the project. Not to mention, if you're going to bid out all of these line items, all you're going to have to do is copy and paste the detail in the cell into an invitation to bid. So if you look at demo, I can just copy that and paste it into, let me show you what my invitation to bid looks like. Paste it into my scope of work here, right? I delete that, paste my demo scope of work, change the address description if I have to. If I need to do additional notes, I can put them here, and then I send it out. Very efficient. I could do that with 3 different demo contractors very quickly, right? If I have a big scope of work, 11 to 15 pages long, and I say, here's the scope of work for the whole house, I want you to bid out the demo portion. They're going to have to look through all of it, make sure they're not missing anything, double check. They're still probably going to overlook certain detail, and it's just not going to go over well. And then whose fault is it when you give them something so complicated and so long, and they don't do it exactly the way that scope of work does? I personally wouldn't blame them for missing certain detail. It happens when you have something as complicated as rehabbing. So our goal is to make this complicated process more simple, right? I say it all the time. At the end of a project, you're going to have 100 line items with dozens of different contractors and vendors. You're worrying about financing, you're worrying about exit strategies, and we're just making the process more complicated by doing long, detailed scopes of work. I'm challenging you guys to keep it simple, keep it as simple as possible. So, communicating with contractors is always the most important, and it's going to keep it clear and simple for them. And it's also going to allow you to efficiently request bids by just doing a copy and paste, right? And as we go through all these goals of the scope of work, I want you to detail your scope of work to just accomplish these goals. Again, if you don't need a SKU number in your scope of work to communicate your scope to a contractor, then leave it out. If you absolutely need the SKU number in the scope of work, you can add it in the cell also. You can still be very detailed here, but you're not taking up 11 pages, 15 pages. You're taking up a much smaller span of, pages that contractors and you and lenders are going to look through. Okay. So next, this is going to help you with budgeting as well. All you're going to have to do is input a column to the right, or have a budget in your right hand and the scope of work in your left hand, and literally read off the scope of work and then put a number in your budget that you think accompanies that scope of work. Okay, you don't have to go searching everywhere. You don't have to go through 11 pages. You can literally just read it off, put a number to the right. Okay, so that's another reason why the simplicity in this format is important. Then lastly, it's scheduling. Okay, we're going to build out our scope of work following the schedule. Okay, so clearing, demo, foundation, framing, doors. You can see all of this follows a construction schedule. Okay, it's not all over the place with cabinets and kitchens up top, and then demo, and then framing all the way on the back end, and plumbing. It's following a schedule. So you're going to know that the first bids to request are clearing, and then you send out your demo, then you send out your foundation. And as you approve these bids, you put your clearing on schedule, and you put your demo on schedule and foundation. So this is going to make the whole process of rehabbing come full circle. You need to know that your 3 most important documents when building properties or when rehabbing properties are going to be your scope of work, your budget, and your schedule. And as long as these three things are compatible, you're going to be producing a much more efficient rehabbing process. Okay, so to round up the video, focus on simplicity and clarity. Everything that you need to communicate in your scope of work can be detailed in one cell, in one paragraph. And last point, if the paragraph's getting too long and you're getting into a long, detailed description, I would then say that you probably need to split that line item into two different line items. Okay, you can always split framing into framing labor and framing material, right? If you really have to. You can always split line items if you have to. Hardwood for the kitchen, refinish hardwood. Those can be two different line items. But instead of creating whole different pages for it, just create a different line item and detail it in one cell. Okay, that's my challenge to you. I'm telling you right now, it's going to make your whole process a lot more efficient. So let me know your thoughts. If you have questions, I'm telling you, could be one of the biggest changes you make in your business if you're not doing it already. All right, sound good? Take care, guys.